Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel if you've been here before, and welcome to you if you're new here. I am SpookyLith. That's SpookyLith, like monolith, but a spooky one, so it's a SpookyLith. And yes, I do struggle to say it because I've got a slight lisp, but it's SpookyLith, not lisp, Lith. And welcome. So this channel, primarily it's going to be a gaming, let's play type of thing, to probably do some live streams and maybe talk about some movies and stuff like that. But on the other side of it, I also do want to talk about sort of recent events, modern stuff, the news, be it in America, the UK or Europe, sort of the Western world. That's where I live, I'm from the UK. And we're just going to offer what I believe is an alternative perspective on some of these issues. The kind of stuff that you either don't get to hear or people just don't say, or people might miss. I always feel like when I see these debates between one side or the other, that there's a lot of things that just kind of, people just kind of miss. Like, they get so into this idea of, you know, Labour, Conservative, Democrat, Republican, that I think a lot of those people are just so invested in that idea that they have forgotten to step back and realise there are other things out there. There are other ideas. It's not just left, right. It sort of is, but there's more to it. There's just more to those sides and to the overall picture in general. And more importantly, when we're talking about, you know, Labour and Conservative, or we're talking about Republican and Democrat, it's easy to forget that there's other parties. Like, we're so used to it just always being Labour, Conservative, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican. We just forget that there are actually other parties out there with completely different, if we took all of the political keywords, all of the political concepts and ideas, and we've got our defined Conservatives and our defined Labour, or our defined Republican and our defined Democrat. We forget that there's some people who've took those ideas and have pulled them out in a different order and have a different combination of those ideas, you know? And when you're invested in that Democrat, Republican, Labour, Conservative mentality, you're missing just too much of the rest of the political spectrum. And that's one of the things that, you know, I'm going to try bring to these conversations is somebody who, because when people ask me, right, people are debating Labour, this and that, no, Conservatives, this and that, Democrats, this and that, no, Republicans, this and that. I say, excuse me from this conversation, I vote Green Party, and then I just leave them to it. And it blows people's minds. It always gets a funny look. It always gets a, you vote Green Party, special snowflake type of reaction. But it's like, when people are having these heated debates about one or the other, it's like, have you forgotten that there's quite literally other options? Have you ever even looked at what those people want to do and what they believe in? Have you ever even, no? And they are, for a lot of those people, the answer is no. They won't tell you no, but then when you start having a conversation with them about the ideals of this other party, more often than not, their minds are blown. They're like, wait, hang on a second. They believe what? They want to do what? Like, they don't know. And in their minds, they've been taught that a vote for Green is a wasted vote, or a vote for any of the other parties is a wasted vote. It's like, there's no such thing as a wasted vote. All there are different perspectives. And you're so used to talking to people who are one or the other, that you've forgotten that some people, some individuals, some human beings out here have a third option. I'll vote for a third option. And that's where I like to think, with a lot of these conversations, I'm going to be coming in with that third option perspective. Now, I'm not a hard Green. I'm not a hard line. Everything the Green Party stands for, I want that. That'd be a lie. However, I've identified that in my entire life, it's in the UK we have Labour and Conservative. It's always been Labour, Conservative, Labour, Conservative, Labour, Conservative. And in America, from what I've seen, it's always been Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat. And we've never had anything else. We did have a coalition government at one point, but that doesn't count because it was shared power and all the power went to the Conservatives. So it was basically a Conservative government anyway, because the Lib Dems, who was their coalition, They were meant to be. They're called. It's literally in the name, Liberal Democrat, and they gave up their values and decided with the Conservatives anyway, defeating the point of them even being anywhere near power. And it kind of just made everything way more awkward and ridiculous than it ever needed to be. So we've never had that third option, and we probably never will, because people are just too hard nosed, straight in with the same two parties we've only ever had. And people are always complaining. There's always people kicking off on both sides. Oh, there's too much LGBT stuff. Oh, there's gun violence. Oh, the NHS. Oh, no, there's benefits. No. And people are whinging that things are not the way they want them to be, while simultaneously voting for exactly the same two people who have only ever been in charge to have gotten us here. And for me, everybody looks, when you have that mentality, not to be too insulting because I respect everyone's political views, but just for someone who's outside of that fucking duality, it looks stupid. When someone starts going, oh, I hate that things are like this, I'm voting Conservative, Labour, Democrat, Republican, I think they're an idiot. I think if you don't like the way things are now, you need to reevaluate who you're voting for, because those are the only two people who've ever been in charge and you don't like the way things are. So what does that tell you? You need to start looking at other options if you don't like the way things have ended up, because the only people who've ever been in charge are the same people you're still voting for. Bit daft, isn't it? Bit silly when you look at it from that perspective, but people are just, I don't want to use that fucking word, brainwashed, even though there's definitely a lot of brainwashing going on. But I almost think people are just too scared. They've been raised a certain way. They're looking at what's trendy and they want to be on the pulse. Most people, I think where it really boils down to is they want to be on the side of the winner. They see the Green Party as perpetual losers, for example, or the Liberal Democrats, or whoever the hell you want to pick out. They just see them as perpetual losers and think there's no point siding with them because they always lose. And that's just completely the wrong way to look at politics. It's not about winning or losing. Like, it is, because you want your party to win so they get power, but it's not about winning or losing, I want to side with the winners. It's about, I want my political ideology to be properly represented. But not only do I want my political ideology to be represented, I also want things to improve in the ways that I want them to improve. And what's that saying? If you do something over and over and over again and it doesn't work and you keep doing it, definition of insanity. And that's what we're doing politically. We think, the Republicans, they align with my views, so I'm going to bring them in. But then at the same time, I'm complaining about everything that's going on in the country at present. In this country, we have a Conservative government. And I have Conservative people saying to me that they don't like the way things are right now. But they're like, so who are you going to vote for? I'm still going to vote Conservative. And I'm like, but they've been in charge for 2 terms and you don't like the way things are. And you're still going to vote for them while complaining that you hate the way things are and that it's all a mess. And it's that separation of, I just want to be on the winning team, or they seem to align with my views, as opposed to, I want results. And we're voting for parties that don't bring results that align with the views they're claiming to align with. And I would say that sooner or later, people will figure that out and wise up. But to be honest, that ship sailed. The time to wise up to that was 20 years ago, 10 years ago. And here we are 10 years later, and people are still making the exact same mistake. So, right off the bat, this whole political conversation looks really daft when you're a person who's already kind of sussed that part out. It doesn't matter whether you vote Labour or Conservative, Republican or Democrat. People are still unhappy with the way things are. And voting for the same two people over and over and over again, the same two parties, isn't going to change that, because they're the ones who got us here in the first place. So I vote Green. One day I would like to see a party like a Green get in power. I'd love to see even the Liberal Democrats. I'd even take me a bit of BNP at this point. But I would just love to see a party outside of the usual two get into power, just so we can see those kinds of dramatic changes that we're all really actually wanting. And instead of betting on the same two horses that never deliver on that promise of change, it'd be nice to bring in someone totally different, who, even if they can't deliver on their promises, will still change things enough to change things instead of it just ticking along at the same ridiculous pace that it is, that's led us to this point where you have the right wingers becoming terrorists and the left wingers rolling over or something. I don't know, but it would just be nice to start seeing some of these changes actually take place. So on this channel, we are going to get into some. We're not going to stick to politics, but as we know, there's sort of politics in everything. So as we look at some of the stuff going on, some of the conversations out there, we will address it on that political side as well as addressing it on a more, boots on the ground, I'm just a citizen side too, and how it affects my actual life versus what I idealistically think will happen on that political spectrum if I just vote for whichever side I think represents me. Truth be told, here's my take. Neither one of the two parties that are always in charge actually represents your ideology. You are a citizen. For the 1% of people out there, the 2%, the 5% of people out there that are in the very, very, very upper crust, and we're talking people who have 50 million, 100 million plus in the bank, which nobody watching this video has that much money, plain and simple. But to those few people who have got 100 million in the bank, the government, either side, does represent you. To the rest of us below that, they do not represent you. And we know this and have known this for a very long time. Gaslighting yourself into thinking that, them giving the rich tax breaks is going to somehow benefit you is delusional. You thinking that these parties that have been there in those positions that are composed of multimillionaires, that are composed of people who are in a category you most probably will never reach, and one day you've got to get honest about that. You're not going to get there. And that's the harsh truth. And more importantly than whether or not you will get there, more importantly, you're not there now. And, you're having families, you're having kids, you're getting in relationships, you're building a social network while voting for a party that represents your idealized version of yourself without realizing, hang on, should I not be voting for a party that represents my actual current situation? There's people in the trailer park voting Republican. The Republicans want to burn down the trailer parks. Republicans want to set homeless people on fire, yet homeless people support Republicans, or druggies, junkies support Republicans while being junkies. It's like you're voting for something you're most probably never going to be, or you might get there. Anybody can find their success, and one day you might be represented by the Republicans, but you're not right now. And the decisions that they're making, and the same thing applies to the Democrats. I'm just using it for example right now because both sides have their problems, and we will get into all of that. But these people are only representing the kinds of people that you are not, and they're only making decisions that benefit people that you currently are not. Some people think if I vote for Republicans and then I keep working hard, I'll become one of these upper echelon Republicans myself. But the Republicans are making decisions right now that will prevent you from being able to get there in the first place. So you kind of digging your own grave with that one, because they're making decisions that benefit the currently rich, not the future rich. They'll say that they're trying to benefit the future rich while also cranking up the cost of student loans. So then it's more expensive for a person to then finish their education. And then by the time they've cranked up the interest rate so high that you can't even, you're struggling just to pay off your student loans, never mind getting into that position of high wealth. Whereas if you'd have voted, you could have a Republican mentality. I want to be this big fat cat, but I also want my student loans to be affordable. So you'll be better off voting for the other side, even if it seems like they're against your views in the present moment. Even if it seems like they're against your views, from an ideological perspective. In your current situation, in the present moment, the other side's actually going to be better for you because they're going to bring down, maybe even forgive student loans, freeing up so much of your income that you might actually then be able to become a big-time Republican. But if you vote the Republicans or the Conservatives in now, they're going to make it so that by the time you're done with your education, it's too expensive for you to become a rich person. Because now it's just so expensive to pay off your student loans. And this is the kind of logical things that people just seem to miss. People just seem to miss this stuff because they're looking at it too ideologically and not looking at it from an actual boots on the ground, my actual life perspective. It's all well and good saying raising taxes will improve the quality of XYZ. It's another thing entirely when them raising those taxes prevents you from then being able to become what it is you idealistically see yourself as being. So, just an example, some of the logical things that get missed because people are just so fired up. And I think a big reason people get so fired up on something that might actually be harmful to them. Because another good one for me, is the people calling for fascism. Now, without going into some specific examples and picking apart the specific arguments, it seems like a lot of these people calling for fascism only are calling for it really because they kind of, let's say, they want to solve the immigration problem and they think a fascist government will handle that really quickly, right? They'll kick out anyone who's not a national. They'll get really strict. They'll lock down the borders. They'll be strict on crime. Drugs will be whittled down to nothing and everything will be law, order and strict. And from an idealistic perspective, some people see that as a good thing. No more immigrants, no more illegals, everything for the people of the country, by the people of the country. And idealistically, it can seem like a good idea. But then when you look at it from a boots on the ground perspective, you quickly realise, well, actually, if the government took that much power and the police were that strict, then it means that my grandma, who can be a right-wing, hard-nosed right-wing, whatever, is now at risk of getting snatched out of her house if she one day expresses an opinion that doesn't happen to align with what Kim Jong-un or Il happens to want everyone to say that week. And then you very quickly realise, well, hang on, just like with Nazi Germany, it can go from, the streets are clean to, oh my god, I can't even sneeze in my house without the government kicking down my door and me disappearing into an internment camp for an X amount of years, right? And that's the thing that these idealistic people are not bringing down to reality. It's all well and good being strict on the borders until you want to leave. It's all well and good being strict on political ideologies till they come after yours. It's all well and good having strict law and order and militarised police until they shoot your nan in the street for coughing on somebody. A lot of these people who were calling for fascism also didn't want to wear masks because the government shouldn't tell me to wear masks. Well, hang on a second, mate. If we had a fascist government, you would be wearing your mask or you would be locked into an internment camp. So you can't, so the idealistic, it applies to everybody but me, is the problem with a lot of these political takes. You've got to remember, it applies to you right now. It's not going to apply to you 10 years from now. It's applying to you right now. Your family right now. And I, for one, would never want a fascist government, because even though I agreed with the mask mandate, I was wearing my mask before it was mandatory, because I just was like, you know what, because of my lifestyle, it just was like, I'm just going to throw a mask on and just call it a day. And then not long afterwards, they became mandatory. And I was like, good job, I was wearing one, right? I agreed with the mask mandate. I agreed with everything they did. I felt like, even though it was a scramble in the beginning, the government eventually did pull their finger out and get some kind of structure and order during the pandemic. Whether you think it was real, whether or not up for discussion, I genuinely thought the government did a good job eventually of setting up the correct kind of procedures to deal with what could have been a really devastating pandemic. It turned out to not be that bad, but better to play it safe than be sorry, right? I, however, would not want a fascist government, because the difference between me voluntarily throwing on a mask and complying with the rules and me having a gun in my face telling me to comply with the rules are two very different situations. And I would never ever want a fascist government because it gives the government too much power, whereas I'm a person who is actually pro-government. Maybe not this government. Maybe some things could be changed. Some things could be looked at, reformed, etc. However, in general, in a broader sense, government is a good thing. Because having one central organisation to take care of the roads, to take care of the various forms of infrastructure, the plumbing, the sewage, the water, hospitals, I think the government should do more for its country, because that's the whole point of a governing body, to govern the land, to take care of the people of the land. And I do think that's a good thing. Just, we need some reforms, and we also need to constantly be updating it to make sure everything is in order too. But I would never want a fascist government, because that gives them too much power. And the kinds of people I saw calling for a fascist government, maybe some of them were trolling, but I think in a large part, they just didn't understand what a fascist government would mean to them immediately in their lives. I don't think they were picturing their own grandmas with a gun in their face. They're picturing Bob down the road who has a different idea from me having a gun in his face. But the problem with a fascist government, the problem with something like that, just like in North Korea, is it becomes too powerful and no one can hold it accountable. And that's where you get your grandma getting thrown in a work camp despite being 85 years old and disabled. So, again, the whole point of that little rant is to sort of say, it's easy to get caught up in what I idealistically want from my government, and these people seem like they're representing my ideals. Let's say I'm against immigration, I'm going to go for the more right-wing conservative government because they seem to be against immigration. What I also need to realise is I might want to immigrate in the next 10 years. For example, I need to make sure that a government's in charge that's going to let me do that. And if I bring in the ones that are going to be strict on immigration, then when it comes my time to go there, I'm going to find myself kind of far out. I'm going to be kind of stuck on my ass a bit because now there's a government in charge that won't let me fucking leave, right? So, you gotta remember to bring it home. Take any political ideology and bring it into your living room. It's all well and good saying, for example, let's go to the left now with the whole cancel culture, PC culture. It's all well and good saying, I don't think they should say that. But then what happens when it comes to your living room and someone says, I don't think you should say that? See, if you bring in someone who's going to be strict on that kind of thing, you need to realise that it's also going to limit what you can say. And if you want open free speech, you then can't get mad when someone says something you don't like. Because you're saying, I want to say things even if someone else doesn't like it. Then you also need to bring that to your living room. What if someone says something to me that I don't like? Do I then take away their free speech? Because I'm not really for free speech. I'm just immature and I just want to be able to say what I want and control what other people say. And if you have a government like that in charge, what happens when you start saying stuff that government doesn't want to hear? And that's the risk. A good example is Mr. Elon Musk. Now, I'm not an Elon Musk hater. I'm not an Elon Musk lover. The space stuff, I'm really glad for society that he brought back the space missions. We needed that. We needed to get up there. The self-driving cars, all the technology, all the stuff that's coming out of his companies. He's bringing robots. He's bringing domestic robots to our houses. How can you not love that? However, at the same time, because he has that kind of, we'll call it clout, because we live in the clout era, because he has that behind him, it then opens up room for him to open his mouth and say a bunch of dumb shit, right? And that happens to anybody who gets into power. It is what it is, but I think when it comes to someone like him, who's a very rich, very powerful, independent individual, you just have to be careful about how much stock you put into him, because he is just a guy, and nobody's flawless, regardless of power, regardless of position. But just like him, I'm coming to Twitter, I'm buying it because I believe in free speech and I think anyone should be able to say whatever they want. In that same breath, he's banning, he's probably banging a lot. He's banning a lot of accounts for like parodies and stupid shit like that. But he's then infringing on people's free will as it suits him, while simultaneously saying he believes that everyone should have this free will on this site. So once again, it's having your cake and eating it. Is not really for free will. He just wants to say whatever he wants to say, unchallenged. But when someone says something he doesn't like, look at how quickly he doesn't like it, despite them having the equal right to free speech that he himself does. So that's just an example where people are fighting for something that they don't actually want. Why say you want free speech and then deny someone their free speech, right? Bring it home to your living room. I want to be able to say what I want, but I don't want them to say what they want. So I bring in a government that will stop them saying what they want, but I need to bring that home and realise that will also stop me from saying what I want. And if I want to be able to say what I want, I need to also accept that my neighbour can also say whatever they want, even if I don't like it. And it's all, some people might hear that and go, well, you know what? I want to be able to say what I want, but I don't want them to. Good. Right? Not good, but fair enough. Now you're being honest. So now when you go to vote, now look twice. Do I really want a government that's going to allow everyone to say anything they want, even if it upsets me? Or should I be voting for a government that's going to let me say what I want and not them? And that's what you need to be voting for. Some Republican politicians and mouthpieces will come out and basically say that. I want free speech, blah, blah, blah. But I don't want them to have it. And they'll say that to you, but when you actually look at what the Republican government is about and what they're actually going to do, they're not going to actually do that. And as we can see by the history of America or the UK with the Conservatives, they haven't done that ever because they can't do that. So when you vote for them thinking they're going to bring you that in this idealistic way, you need to really realise they can't deliver on that and never will. They never will deliver on that because it's not even in their political mandate to do that. And that's, again, where people are just getting it so wrong when they're voting for them, thinking that they're going to get what they want in, because that's what some mouthpiece said should happen. But the actual government doesn't even represent that in the first place, and you're voting for the wrong party. So be honest. When you bring it to your living room, it'll make you more honest. I want to be able to say what I want, and I don't want them to. So I should vote for somebody else, because the Republicans won't do that. The Republicans want free speech, which means my neighbour can say some shit I don't like, and I have to just accept that. Make up your mind. You can't. You see the difference between bringing it home. So, and what I was going to go on to say was before, that's the real problem, is that people are listening to these mouthpieces with these really extreme views, basically saying what I just said, and then thinking that they represent the actual government that will take power. And it's like they don't. They don't represent that. They're just some idiots saying that, and they just happen to also be Republicans. And a lot of people did it with Trump. You know, you had people on the left and on the right attributing all these ideas, all these things that Trump was supposedly going to do, supposed to do. You know, you had like QAnon, you had all this stuff. But then, in reality, Trump never said any of it, ever. He never, you know, for example, it's the first thing that comes to mind, and it's when people were so loud about Trump being really racist, right? Now, Trump did say some spicy stuff. He says, let's build a wall between Mexico and us and make them pay Mr. Big Balls and all that. But what he said was, let's build a wall between us and Mexico to stop the illegal immigrants coming in. What he didn't say was, I hate Mexicans and I'm racist. He never said that. But for whatever reason, everyone on both sides just assumed he just was racist. Now, he might be, but he never actually said in any of his political stances that he was racist and he's going to do a bunch of racist, fascist shit. He never said it. People just started projecting that onto him. Why? Because some of the mouthpieces speaking on him said that he felt like that. And everyone listened to them and then attributed that to him. But he actually never said any of that and had no intentions of doing any of the stuff people thought he were going to do. Like QAnon. I know there was like, oh, he tweeted a little winky face and no, right? No, he didn't. He never said he was for QAnon. He never said that. It was all speculation. It was all coming from mouthpieces and not from the man himself. Now, if he'd have gone on, done a speech and says, I am of QAnon and I believe everything they say, then you can attribute it to him. Trump never said that. You know, but however, it is, and another problem with politics for another video, is that it is a popularity contest. I would say he didn't play into some of that stuff a bit, because he's a smart man, and he did what he had to do to get himself the win. But he never said any of the stuff that people were associating with him. He never said, I want a fascist government. He never said, I'm a raging racist and I hate all these people. He never said he was against BLM. He never said... He just never said any of the stuff that people claimed he said. He did say some really spicy shit. He did say some really odd stuff sometimes because, you know, it just was how he was going about things. It just looked odd to us who might not really have understood where he was coming from. But he never said any of the stuff that people were trying to pin onto him and say, yeah, he represents me. If you bring it to your living room, he did not say any of that. But the mouthpieces did. And you listen to the mouthpieces that are even politicians. A lot of the people, like in the conservative media that people are listening to, they're not even politicians, and people hang off their every word anyway as though they represent the government when they're just giving their random opinions. So, anyway, like I say, this channel, we're going to talk on a lot of stuff. It's going to be news, politics, but it's primarily going to be gaming and entertainment stuff. But we will get into some political, we will get into the news, we will get into that kind of thing as and when, you know, it seems relevant to do so. But yeah, so I guess the point of this video is bring the politics to your living room. Realise that something that looks good on paper, when you actually bring it to your family in your living room, might not work the way you think it does. You don't want to see, you know, trans people in the streets. Then don't vote for someone who supports free speech, I'm sorry. Don't support someone who believes in free speech if you don't want to see transgenders people walking around. Common sense, right? You'd think so, but everyone just assumes that the Republicans hate transgenders, but they don't. as a government, they're for it. They want people to be able to represent who they are and stuff. What the mouthpieces say and what the government's actually representing are two completely different things. So don't get caught up in the media telling you this and that about what everyone's doing. Don't get caught up in the mouthpieces. Look at what your government that you're supporting actually wants to do, and realize that when you bring that home, a lot of it might not be what you thought it was going to be. And I would hate for you to be that person who has egg on their face because they didn't research well enough, you know? So I'm gonna cut this video off here. It's a 30-minute video now, nice and long. And that's just an introduction to my political stance and how I view the political spectrum. Like I say, I have a stance that I think is not popular. You don't hear it. I see debates all the time. People get into it. It gets aggressive, gets heated. And it's like people just miss the entire point. And that is, when you bring all this stuff home, it looks very, very different to how it looks on TV. So anyway, I'm SpookyLith. This was my little political rant. Hope you enjoyed. Leave your comment below. Debate me. Put your piece in. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm right. Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like. And, you know, I will see you on the next video. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. Hopefully the quality of this channel will improve. Right now we're just sat here with a couple of fucking stills of some Google images. But as the channel grows, as we get on, hopefully things improve and things, you know, go up in quality and up in scale and things get more epic and, you know, it becomes an enjoyable thing to watch. So thank you for being here. Leave your comments, like, subscribe, all the stuff, all the usual stuff, and I will see you in the next video. Peace out, people. But you won't see me, but, you know, anyway. Peace.